Okay, so it's one thing to find your dream job and dream company. It's a whole other thing to be able to apply and go through the whole application process. You're often competing with thousands of other people online, and it feels like a black hole when you submit that application and kind of have no sense of when you're going to hear back and what to do to better prepare yourself for the interview, especially if you're coming from a non-traditional background and feel like you don't have anyone else to talk to. This was the very pain point that Jonathan Javier and Jerry Lee has found and noticed consistently. While they were working at Google, they realized that, well, why is it that it's so hard for non-targeted schools and non-traditional background individuals to find good jobs, even though they were talented? So in 2019, they came together to change that reality. They created Wonsulting. And you might have noticed them because they are very active on social media. In fact, they have served and helped 1.5 million followers around the world rethink about what it means to find a good job and how to go through that application process. And by helping thousands of people achieve their dream careers in top companies like Google, Meta, Goldman Sachs, and Deloitte, you will realize that, wow, this whole job market and job search process is an art, but you don't have to do it alone. They want to help you. So I was very glad today to have them over here at Dear Workplace as we dive into this job and compensation theme to better understand what is going on in the job market and what can we do today. So let's dive in. You're listening to Dear Workplace by Innovators Box. I'm your host, Monica Kang, founder and CEO of Innovators Box. We'll dive in. So I'm very excited to have two friends, Jerry and Jonathan, here on the show from Wonsulting. Thank you so much for joining us. Very excited to dive into all about the workplace right now. So number one question to both of you, how in the world did you first decide to start this company?
Yeah. So first off, thank you so much for having us, Monica. We really appreciate it. So it was almost 5 years ago. It was actually 5 years ago when we decided to start Wonsulting. And it all started when we were working at Google. We saw many different folks who came from these non-traditional backgrounds who didn't have opportunities necessarily to work in these top companies. And we said to ourselves, how can we bridge that gap between those who come from those backgrounds and working at those companies? So it started as a side passion project, a side hustle, where we were doing workshops almost every single day at every university you could imagine. And people thought we were crazy because we were doing it every single day. But just through that, we were able to find a way to help others, especially from those underserved communities. And that's when Jerry and I were able to join forces to create a company like Wonsulting. And now, fast forward to 5 years, we're building AI job search tools and products to help the future generations of underdogs to turn into winners.
Yeah, I very much agree with that sentiment. And Monica, first, thank you for having us here. I'm so excited to be here. Anytime we get to collaborate with other entrepreneurs who are trying to do good in the world, we're always so excited. So thank you for having us, Monica. And for me, I think my sort of passion for job search came about and how that led into my sort of meeting with Jonathan was that for me, I come from a first generation low income background. And so for me, I got to witness firsthand, well, hey, the job search simply isn't just finish your degree, apply to a company that you want to work at and get the job. It's a lot more like a game. And because it's like a game, someone has to help you understand, well, what is the best way for you to get a job? What is the best way for you to write a resume? And what John and I both shared in our sort of mutual experiences is that almost nobody talked about this stuff, especially for people who are more junior. And that's where we were like, well, we have to do something, because now that we're on the opposite side where we're working at these companies, we're both volunteering to help our specific team recruit and work with the recruiting teams and such. Well, we began to realize this actually isn't as complicated as people made it seem like. And that's where it also started as well.
Well, I really appreciate it. As I mentioned briefly, I first also learned about both of your work together through your social media campaigns, the little quick bites. And one of the things I was really inspired was just how you made it so easy to digest, relatable. And I think it really comes from the heart that what you've highlighted. I want to do a little rapid fire, maybe from each of your different aspects. Jerry, circling back to you, if you have to highlight one cover letter resume mistakes everyone's repeating that we need to stop, what would you say?
The one resume mistake that I think many people miss is they don't tailor it to a job title. I think today people do a really good job of keeping a resume one page, having impact metrics, and so on and so forth. But what I see is that people will just talk about their experience. In today's market, that's not good enough. What you have to do is you need to talk about your experience in the context of the job that you're applying for. That's not to say you need to create a resume for every single job application, but we recommend you create a resume tailored for a job title. Once you can do that, that'll make your job search resume process so much easier.
Building on that, Jonathan, what about for you in regards to job hunting process? Because I feel like the process has also changed quite a bit. What's something we need to stop doing or maybe start doing as well?
Yeah, I think the traditional method of simply applying to jobs is something that people traditionally do, right? You apply to a job online and you expect a response back from one of these companies when in fact it sometimes doesn't always work out that way. So one of the ways that we encourage folks, especially from non-traditional backgrounds, to break into their respective companies is by networking. And that's through the power of LinkedIn. One of those ways is also to find the recruiters and hiring managers. And Jerry and I teach this all the time about how to find these different folks from those backgrounds. When you go on LinkedIn, you search hiring plus the position you're interested in, and then you filter directly to the hiring managers and recruiters who are hiring directly for the roles you're interested in. Reach out to them, say something that you mutually have in common with that person while exemplifying your experiences, which will then allow you to stand out after applying to that job. So we highly recommend not only just applying to jobs, but also networking as well.
So important. I feel like the relationship building piece and how we network is changing. And Jerry, going back to you on that, which is, I loved how, as I said, the simplification at both of you and how you use social media. Jerry, like, what would you say first from your angle, from the past 5 years, especially as you guys been starting to do this work and how we network or how we communicate in positioning ourselves change?
I think the biggest difference I see is that, well, one, the way that you communicate and the way that we even start these networking, it's almost always online now. Doing these virtual coffee chats and stuff is so common. And I think historically you would try to reach out to the person, see if you can grab coffee with them, meet them at a local Starbucks. And I think that was a lot more common maybe 3-4 years ago. But now as we've been okay and through the remote era, almost always is going to be remote. Just like we're doing this call today, it's all remote. And that's one of the biggest differences I see.
And I know building on those coffee chat, Jonathan, I noticed, for instance, like, both of you do a lot, but Jonathan, your particular post last month in January when you talked about the 29 coffee chats in celebration of your birthday, I thought that was very nice of you. Could you share a little bit more about what motivates you and also how you thought of that idea of how you wanted to do the coffee chats to give back?
What motivates us is when you're able to see someone who comes from that non-traditional background land a interview or a job opportunity after they've tried so many different methods is something that's so fulfilling. So I did one of those chats actually a few days ago, and it was this lady from Nigeria, and she said that she applied to 1,000 roles, right?
That's a lot.
And what we've seen a lot, right? And what we've seen is that many job seekers, when applying to a job, they get around maybe 2% interview rate. For her, she only got one interview out of those 1,000 jobs that she applied to. So what we decided to do was we gave her not only some job search tips, but we surprised her with Wonsulting AI access for their AI job search tools. And you should have seen the smile on her face. She was so excited and she was like, wow, you all at Wonsulting are doing great work. And this is the most help I've ever gotten from anybody. And she's so happy that she's like, I wanted to say a prayer for you guys. So all I want to say is that when you're able to see people smile during a time when the job market isn't as hot, it's truly fulfilling. And that's why our mission states to turn underdogs into winners. If we're able to do that for people not only in the US, but worldwide, that's impactful.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for indulging me in the little rapid fire. I think it gives a little taste for our audience and listeners to see where you're coming from. Opening the floor to both of you, as you're taking a kind of broader stroke, I know there's lots of different trends you're noticing. And of course, AI and machine learning is the hot topic. And I appreciated that Wonsulting has gone forward and actually integrating AI into the solution making. You have many AI tools in how we rethink about the job market and apply, prepare. Tell me a little bit more how that came about and why it's so important we actually use AI tools like that in your services and how we apply to jobs differently.
Monica, I think it's a great question. So I think the main principle behind why we wanted to create AI products was because we realized that we have quite the audience and we just couldn't serve our audience individually. It just gotten to the point where if John and I spent 15 minutes with everyone in our audience, that's what we would do for the rest of our lives and not even touch 10% of the people. And so one of the things we thought about and brainstormed a lot upon was like, well, what do we do to help service the people who maybe need our help? We just can't meet with them. And the biggest thing that we thought about was, all right, well, let's explore this idea of AI and stuff. And this was maybe 2.5 years ago, I think, when we first had this idea. So this is before ChatGPT was around and all that. And so that was the original impetus. And what we've learned through this journey is that AI can absolutely help you as a job seeker because you don't need to spend the time thinking through what is a good bullet point? What does a good cover letter look like? Why do I need to apply to these jobs? What link do I even need to click to network with the right type of people and recruiters and hiring managers? Let our tools do that for you. Right. And I think one thing I've learned is that not everyone wants to be resume experts. Not everyone wants to learn how to be an expert in applying to jobs. Nobody likes doing that. So how do we then use AI to help make the job search process easier? And that's the whole principle and philosophy behind AI. I don't think AI will get you 100% of the way there, but our philosophy is how do we get you 90% of the way there? So all you need to do is just edit things here and there and you're done.
John, anything you want to add? I know there's also a new service you guys just launched in addition to the ones you have.
Yeah, one thing to add is that AI isn't going to replace, right? It's going to accelerate your job search. I think that's very important. And when you use AI on your job search, it'll get you to the 80% mark, meaning that it can create you a great bullet up to 80%, but it's up to you to do the editing. And that's what we like to teach, especially when we're teaching people how to utilize our AI job search tools. How do you get to that 80%? And then how do you finish it up to that 100%? So yeah, AI is going to be definitely the thing of now and in the future.
So important. No, thank you for sharing. Building on it, I'm sure you have many opinion on this, but I would love to dive into what's one thing you wish corporations stop doing to find true diverse talent? This is your time to share. What would it be?
Oh man, we could talk about these for hours, John. But to keep this short, I think the number one and most important thing is every company has a right and they have the resources, but more importantly, they have the responsibility to get back to their candidates. I think people who come from less traditional backgrounds typically have lesser networks. And because you have lesser networks, you have to rely on applying to jobs and doing it the hard way. And that's the reality for most people when they go through the job search. I think companies often forget that those people are the ones who are most mentally impacted when you go through referrals and you go through the interview process and applications and you don't have a job after applying to 1,000 applications, for example, like the person that Jonathan mentioned, that it can be extremely disheartening. And I can realize that because when I was at Google, so many of my colleagues there, they got the job at Google because they knew somebody else who was on the team or they knew the leader. And so they don't have to go through as much rejection. So they don't know the pain, right? And so what might seem like, oh, I don't want to have to send this email. I don't want to have to do this. That small action in itself can truly change the way that someone thinks about their job search process, but also more importantly, them as a candidate. And we have the job to make sure we hear these people. We help solve their pain points. We remind them that they have value, even if they got rejected 1,000 times over. But I think companies can do a better job in making sure that they help candidates understand it's not a you problem. Oh, it's because we just hired somebody else and someone else just got there first. And that's okay. I think candidates would be a lot happier if they knew, oh, well, there's nothing I could have done anyways. So I think that's, to me, the biggest thing that I think that's the easiest to change that'll have the most amount of impact.
That makes such a difference. I mean, I think we could all resonate no matter what kind of job we had, what it's like to feel that cricket silence of like, do I just have to be patient? Am I going to be the one impatient because I sent that email asking when I'm going to hear back and then it gets crickets? And so thank you, Jerry, for highlighting that. Building on that, John, and then I'm curious for you, on the flip side, what's something that you want to share with all our candidates who, whether they are starting their career for the very first time or going through a career change, I need to think, well, maybe how to better position myself because of this job market that's going on. What's one advice you would want to share with them?
So from the employer side, I think what happens a lot for companies is that they'll look, especially for students who are trying to work in these companies, they'll look at specific universities like the Ivy League schools, the Harvards, the Yales, the Princetons of the world. And they'll only look at those universities and say, all of my candidates, all of my future employees are from these universities. But it doesn't create that equity for other universities who might have diverse talent and diverse perspectives. That is something that companies need to look at more. How do you hire more diverse talent from different universities, different backgrounds? Because for me, when I was graduating from UC Riverside, it's not one of the top UCs. I always thought to myself, well, I'm never going to get into a Google, a Cisco, one of these big name companies because of my own university background. Because if I simply applied to that job, I felt like, well, they're never going to look at my resume because they're already looking at someone from Harvard. So I thought to myself, how could I stand out between that person and other people who go to those universities? A lot more companies need to look at those respective candidates. And there are so much great talent, especially for those who come from smaller schools. And hopefully we're going to be able to bridge that gap between them.
No, I'm glad you said it. I mean, especially now at the time when we're talking about SATs are changing or like, are we even getting required? What does college requirement, like
That's right,
people are actually also not going to colleges at all. So the whole market for our next generation of the talent pools has drastically changed. And so thank you for highlighting that. So then what can our future candidates, whether they are new to the job market or have been around for a while and maybe mid-career or senior careers trying to change, what's something that they need to upskill and maybe do even better because of where the job market and changes are going?
Yeah, Monica, I think the biggest thing that, especially for people who are in their career, or maybe you're in the mid-career phase of your career journey, the most important thing is for you to plan. The reason why I say this is because oftentimes some of the mid-career job seekers that we work with, they'll often tell us, hey, listen, I've been in operations my entire life. I've done supply chain. I just heard about this role, product manager. I want to be a product manager. Help me get to a product management role. And we're sort of looking at each other and going, okay, well, we want to be realistic. It's possible. But my question to you is, how long of a lead time do you have? Do you have 2, 3, 4 years? And oftentimes I get, no, Jerry, I want to be a product manager now. I want to, right? And so the biggest thing I think people who are in the mid-career, the biggest problem that they face is that they think that they've pigeonholed themselves in a way where they can't pivot out. I've been in supply chain my entire life, therefore I have to be in supply chain. But that's simply not the case. Now, the best way for you as someone who's in mid-career, think about your career, is to think about, well, okay, where do I want my end destination to be? Let's say I want to be a product manager and I'm currently in operations today. You might have a lot of the skills of project management, working with different stakeholders, but you might lack the technical skills of, hey, we want to build this new feature out. How do we do it? And you're thinking, I don't know, isn't that the engineer's job? Right? And so the biggest thing I would urge people, especially in their mid-career, is to plan. Think about, what do you want out of a job? Don't let a layoff be the reason why you start planning. Be proactive about it, because the best time for you to find a job is when you don't need one.
So well said. John, what about for you? What's coming up?
Jerry hit it on the nail there, especially with the proactiveness. What happens a lot is something will happen, such as a layoff or a furlough, and then you'll act. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, now I have to network. Now I have to make the perfect resume. Now I have to go update my LinkedIn profile. When in fact, what we recommend to people is always be networking. Even if you're at a respective big company that you say is your dream company, network with other people who are in other industries and other companies similar to the size that you're in, and see if not only they could be good connections, but potentially maybe that may be a good company in the future. We see a lot of job seekers or a lot of employees nowadays transitioning every 2 years at respective companies because they're able to not only go up in terms of levels, but they're also able to increase in terms of the amount of salary and compensation that they receive. So continuously network with different people. And what I encourage people all the time is after a year, go network with some people, see what's out there in the market, and see if you're getting paid the amount that you're worth. And I think that's very important to not be reactive to things. When a layoff happens, then you go search, be proactive about it.
That's so key. No, thanks for bringing us back to earth to keeping those principles in mind. We'll be remiss to also acknowledge that yourself as a team and as a company are going through a lot of this also internally as well. Tell me, as a fast growing company and managing your internal team, all these clients, fans, communities, I can only imagine. I mean, how do you make time for your personal time, rest? Like, tell me a little bit more how both of you have found the best way to manage your time and energy. I think, Jerry, you kind of hinted a little bit, inspired you with the AI to make sure how can we serve more without burning out, which I think is so key. We would not want to both of you to burn out. So what's been a way how you both manage your time? And I think that would inspire others as well, that we can learn how we can manage our time better as busy leaders.
Oh man, yeah. I think John and I talk about this every week. At least for me, I feel like I'm really bad at this. I don't really manage my time too well. I'll tell you what my ideal would be. Typically, what'll happen is I'll wake up at 9:30-ish, hop on the computer at 10, work till 5, 6. And then from 10 to 12, I might do some content planning or filming, or I might try to figure something out. That's what I do. But yeah, definitely not ideal. John, what do you think?
I was going to say, if I said that I had like a work-life balance, I'd be lying right now. So
yeah, John, you should tell about your sleeping schedule.
Yeah, my sleeping schedule is not ideal. I think what I do have though is a work-life harmony, meaning that like the work that we do, we truly enjoy doing. And if we have to do something outside of work, like we can do that. We're not forced to be like, okay, work, work, work all the time. Right. Yeah. My schedule is a little bit weird to say the least. So I will stay up until like 3 a.m. some days. And then I'll wake up at like 8 or 9. And we have some engineering meetings sometimes at 7 a.m. So I'll get like 4 to 5 hours of sleep, which I don't recommend to people. But what's really interesting though is that I'm not usually tired at all. And I think what gives me energy is our team. Jerry especially is the one who's always pushing me to always think outside the box, to think about what the future is, how we can make our vision come to life. My wife is always pushing me to think in a very similar way, right? So when you're working on something, what I try to think about is the work that we're doing. If we're able to do something 5 times faster, if we're able to launch this product even more perfect than it is, we're going to be able to impact even more job seekers, more of the millions of followers that we have on social media, and we're going to be able to help them get jobs. And that's fulfilling.
Yeah. And to John's point, I think what's really interesting for me, and John and I talk about this a lot, because it's for every additional hour that you put into your corporate job, there's not always something that you'll get as a result of you putting in 45, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And even if you do, you're not guaranteed that you're going to get a promotion. Oftentimes, the people who get promoted are the ones who are the best liked, are the ones who appear to have the most impact, not the ones who put in the most number of hours. Whereas I feel like when you start your own company or you work at a startup where you have equity, one of the things that's very different is that for every hour that you do put in, yeah, you kind of do see the results right away. Or maybe not right away, but you reap the benefits of it, right? Because you realize, okay, well, if we launch this product, that means we as a company can help service more people. If we can service more people, maybe that'll get us more users and so on and so forth. So I think that mentality change in itself allows me to work at 5:12 p.m. on a Friday night because it's something that you want to do, not something that you're forced to.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your passion. But please, we want to make sure you two are not burned out and your team. And so appreciate you leading with passion. We've dove into so many different things. Really appreciate your time. Before we wrap up, 2 rapid last questions. 1, final wisdom and advice you want to share with innovators who's tuning in, no matter where they are in their career journey from each of you. Maybe Jonathan first, then Jerry.
Yeah. And Monica, these podcasts, it gives me energy, and I'm sure it gives Jerry energy as well. So again, thank you for giving us energy today. We really appreciate it. I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give is that many people say this, but it's in fact true. Your support system is the one that truly reflects who you are, and get someone who pushes you to be 150% of the version and the potential that you can be. Jerry is one of those people who helped me get to that 150%. My wife is as well. And that's the similar thing for job seekers, right? If you're with a group of job seekers who are also motivated and confident to land a job, you will also feel the same way. If you're with other job seekers that might be like blaming different external factors, you're also going to feel the same way too. So associate yourself with those who will push you to go even further than you think you can. And that'll make a huge difference, especially in your career.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Jerry?
The biggest piece of advice I would say is just invest into things that give you energy. For me and John, that was the start of Wonsulting. I think a lot of people feel like Wonsulting was this sort of strategic decision that Jonathan and I both made. No, it absolutely just came as a result of me and John wanting to share the whole idea of job search to as many people as possible. And slowly but surely, people kept asking us for more different things. And that's how we landed where we are today. And it all came because Jonathan and I spent the first year of Wonsulting doing 200 workshops, and they were all free. Or most of them, like 95% of them were all free.
That's amazing. Wow.
Right. And so we would do LinkedIn Lives, we would do school workshops, we would do all these things up until someone said, hey, how much? And we're like, how much? I don't know, $20? I guess that's enough, right? So for us, this was absolutely a passion. And although we have days that are hard, although it's not always sunshine and rainbows, I feel very lucky to be in a position where I get to make a difference in something that's so personal to me.
Well, we're very grateful for the work that you have started, continue to do, and continue to build. Final question is, what's the best way folks can follow up with you and stay in touch with both of you?
I think just Google Wonsulting. Wonsulting.com is the best way for people to find us. You'll find our social medias there. You'll find our tools, our services, our free resources that we have, our emails, everything you'll find on there. And hopefully we'll see you there.
Yep. Also, you can search for AI job search tools, Wonsulting AI. And when you sign up for Wonsulting AI, you can start using it for free. And you can try to use our resume tools, cover letter tools, auto apply tools, and networking tools. And we have a new one coming soon. Stay tuned.
Love it. Appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. This was John and Jerry from Wonsulting. Very excited to have had you, and we will make sure people will find you. And folks, again, for tuning in, if you're familiar with the roles, go to our show notes. We'll have all the links readily available, so that way you can follow them and learn more. So thank you so much. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow. What a humbling journey. As John and Jerry has shared in their story, it is not easy to be able to find your dream job and position yourself, but with care and thoughtfulness, you can. And as they have reminded, you're not alone. This is a journey and a marathon. And speaking of which, even when you do reach there, you might notice that sometimes what you thought about that job looks a little different in reality. And it's important that you position to prepare yourself to thrive once you are in those jobs as well. So next week, I'm excited to invite 2 friends who will share a little bit more about how they are thriving in their jobs, love what they do, but remind you that the grass looks greener on the other side until you realize what's really going on. So we're going to dive a little bit more about what it's like to have a job in software engineering and PR two very competitive fields, but perhaps something that you can walk away knowing that, hey, I can do it too if I put my mind to it. You're listening to Dear Workplace by Innovators Box. I'm your host, Monica Kang, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode at Dear Workplace, where we untangle your questions about the workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Please send us your questions, feedback, suggestions at info@innovatorsbox.com or dearworkplace.com, because we want to know how to continue to dive deeper in navigating those questions with you. This show, of course, is possible thanks to the amazing podcast team at Innovators Box Studios that I want to do a little shout out. Audio engineering and producing by
Sam Blamern.
Audio engineering and assistance by
Ravi Ladd.
Website and marketing support by
Cree Pandey.
Graphic support by
Leah Orsini.
Christine Eribal.
Original music by Innovators Box Studios. And executive producing, directing, writing, researching, and hosted by me, Monica Kang. Thank you again for your support.